from the Mercy One studio.
Support for Faith on Trial and Iowa Catholic Radio provided in part by Imogene Ingredients.
Our freedom of conscience and religion is being challenged by laws and regulations imposed by secular society. It's time to hear from the top Christian litigators in the nation who have come forward to tell us the truth and help us defend our faith.
Hear ye, hear ye. All rise. Faith on Trial with Defender of the Faith, Deacon Mike Mano, is in session.
And good Thursday morning from the Mercy One Studios in West Des Moines. I'm Deacon Mike Mano, and I'm here with Gina Knoll. Gina, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well. Lots in the news this week. I understand the Pope is still recovering.
Right, but he's at home now.
Oh,
yeah,
good.
He was released from the hospital, so he's home, and we hope he does well.
Yes.
So we'll have to remember him in our prayers.
We have been keeping him in our prayers, for sure.
Right.
For sure.
And there's a couple of interesting news notes out here. First of all, we have another federal appeals court that has struck a blow for religious liberty, has to deal with the Archdiocese of Chicago, where a former parish music director was terminated after he entered into a same-sex marriage. He sued the Archdiocese, and the case was lost on the local level, and it went up to the Court of Appeals, and it was lost there too. But then the Archdiocese petitioned for a rehearing at the Federal Appeals Court in Bonk. In other words,
right.
all the judges
listening,
mm-hmm. They reversed and said that even though he's just a music director, or just, with
mm-hmm.
quotes around it,
correct,
he still falls under the ministerial exception,
yep.
which means that the Archdiocese is protected against such claims against people who are serving in ministerial positions. And they said basically the music director is in a ministerial position.
And if I remember correctly, even like a janitor that works for a Catholic school is considered ministerial.
Yeah, and a lot of them can be. And so that's the part of the religious liberty that we're looking at here, is that these religious institutions that hire people to promote their religious mission should be considered ministers
of the church.
Mm-hmm. The problem that the Catholic Church has had, of course, is that we don't call them all ministers. You go to some evangelical churches, and there's a youth minister, there's a couples minister, there's
sure.
an outreach minister, and they give
Use
them the title
minister.
Or pastor, youth pastors. You hear about youth pastors a lot. So we don't do that. We call him a music director. So.
Right, not music minister.
Not music minister.
But still considered a minister. And there are court rulings that protect the rights of the church in this way.
Mm-hmm. And now the Seventh Circuit here has joined in.
So I imagine we'll see this case as it moves along in the process.
Yeah, I don't know. They may want to try and appeal that to the Supreme Court, but with the makeup of the Supreme Court today, I don't think they get very far. But we will see what happens. Stranger things have happened.
Absolutely, and we know these things percolate very slowly.
That's right. They do.
Much can happen.
And that was
Court
just decided. That case, I guess it was last week.
Within the week, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, and then the city of Centerville, Texas, became the 33rd city in the United States to ban abortions by unanimously passing a sanctuary city bill for the unborn.
I like this strategy. Yeah. It hasn't been tested in the courts yet, so it'd be interesting to see how that works out. But what a beautiful way to protect life and to honor humanity.
Mm-hmm. I think so, too, and I think more cities ought to do that. But, of course, you're right, they'll all be challenged.
Certainly, but in the meantime, those babies are safe.
Yeah. But we may be losing. We'll talk to Jordan when we get him on the phone in a few minutes about this Weldon Amendment that's being left out of the president's budget.
Yes. Well, at least the budget being discussed in the Appropriations Committee in the House.
That, and what the Weldon Amendment does is it protects religious and conscience rights of different entities and people.
Including cities.
If
they're getting federal dollars for it, if they choose not to allow abortions, they are not penalized.
So I'm sure that Jordan Buzza will know a little bit more about it.
Yes.
And so we will.
So who's our guest today?
Deal with him. It's Jordan Buzza. I think I got the name pronounced correctly. He is with the Christ Medicus Foundation, and he's an attorney, and he's going to talk to us about, first thing he's going to talk to us about is a new ruling.
It's a law, I think, in Ohio that was signed by the governor.
That's right, that it protects medical conscience rights.
Exactly.
And so we're going to talk about that.
So whether it's euthanasia or abortion, I'm assuming, I'm anxious to learn more about the legislation.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And then to see how far this is going. Because a lot of other people are picking this stuff up and passing these things. So we will see. We will see. Do you have a prayer to open us up with?
I do. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. God of peace, bring your peace to our violent world, peace in the hearts of all men and women, and peace among the nations of this earth. Turn to your way of love those whose hearts and minds are consumed with hatred. Strengthen us in hope, and give us the wisdom and courage to work tirelessly for a world where true peace and love reign among the nations and in the hearts of all. Amen.
Thank you very much. And we will be back in just a few minutes with the aforementioned Jordan Buzza from the Christ Medicus Foundation. You're listening to Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio.
Thank you, Confluence Brewing Company, for underwriting Christ is the Answer with Father Ricardo and for your support of Iowa Catholic Radio. Father Ricardo is featured daily at 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Confluence Brewing Company is located off the bike trail south of Grays Lake, confluencebrewing.com. Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and John Leonetti in the Morning is provided by Blessman International. Blessman International partners with volunteers and donors to provide sustainable programs for children in South Africa by leading a 12-day, all-inclusive experience sharing the heart of Christ with vulnerable children in South Africa. Teams are forming to do something significant in an African child's life. Learn more at blessmaninternational.org. That's blessmaninternational.org. Thank you, Blessman International, for your support of Iowa Catholic Radio.
St. Vincent de Paul's assists those living in poverty to become self-sufficient. Learn more at svdpsm.org or call 515-282-8327. This message brought to you by Homemakers Furniture.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and John Leonetti in the Morning provided by Bell Construction.
Bell Construction is a roofing company. They specialize in residential re-roofs, like commercial jobs, and have the experience to meet all of your roofing needs with personal service. With Bell Construction, the owner will come to your home or place of business in person to inspect and ensure the quality of work that you deserve. They pride themselves in working with you on a personal basis and making sure you are satisfied. Bell Construction, 515-963-4494. Bell Construction.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Faith on Trial provided by Paul Martin and Paul Mitchell, owners of Imogene Ingredients. Imogene Ingredients supply specialized feed ingredients for livestock and pet diets to improve maternal and young animal health in both conventional and organic production. And we are back. You're listening to Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio. We have Jordan Buzza, I think I have that right, Jordan, who is with the Christ Medicus Foundation. Jordan, welcome to Faith on Trial.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to speak with both of you.
Certainly. First of all, I think maybe for our listeners out here, you might want to explain what Christ Medicus is.
Sure. Yeah, happy to do so. Thank you. Christ Medicus is a Catholic healthcare nonprofit ministry that is aiming to protect the right of medical conscience and to build up faithful Catholic healthcare solutions like our Catholic healthcare ministry, CMF Curo.
All right, and along with Catholic, your Curo, Catholic Medical Services, is that right?
Right. The CMF Curo, the CMF being the Christ Medicus Foundation.
Right, and what does that do?
So, Curo is a healthcare ministry that helps to connect Catholics with other Christians across the country, making sure that when they have medical costs, they have a solution for getting their bills paid for. Right?
Okay.
And it does so in an ethical way where we're not paying for anything morally objectionable, and we receive the care that we really deserve in light of the dignity that we have from God.
Okay, very good. Now, as far as the rights of conscience in that, I understand, and we got a press release from you folks last week about this new medical conscience law in Ohio.
Right. Yeah. Thankfully, this legislation passed in Ohio and conscience protections were included. Conscience protections are absolutely vital for making sure that medical professionals are allowed to use their judgment about what's best for their patients so they can protect the life, health, and dignity of their patients and protect the religious freedom of the medical professionals so that they're not having to violate their own beliefs in how they practice medicine.
Now, let me ask you about how widespread this issue is across the United States. We hear a lot about physicians and practitioners that won't perform abortions or won't do certain types of procedures that they feel are unethical or goes against their religious beliefs, and yet we find some of these people are being fined, they're being sued, they're losing their jobs. This protection in Ohio, how far does that go, and how dissimilar are other laws in the United States that would cause these people some difficulty?
Well, we do feel that the protection in Ohio is strong, and it's in the right area, right? The protection is really focused on making sure the providers, the professionals, don't have to perform certain procedures, right, that would violate their conscience. And that's really what's the issue here is certain procedures. It's not about caring for classes of people or anything like that, right? Every human being deserves care, deserves treatment to make sure that, if there's an emergency, anything like that going on, that they get the care they need. This is about making sure they have the ability to not perform procedures that they can't. So the law in Ohio, is I think is very well constructed to do that. There is a need for further protection on the state level and the federal level. Okay, we're seeing, we've heard about things like the Equality Act, which takes away conscience protection and protection around religious freedom for how healthcare is practiced. There, at the Christ Medicus Foundation, we've worked with a number of different medical professionals who have encountered persecution, firing, pressure from their facilities, their employers, about how they practice medicine. So this is an issue that we need to make sure we're emphasizing, we're protecting. It protects life, it protects dignity, and it makes sure that we actually have faithful, pro-life healthcare options. If we don't protect conscience, then Catholic medical professionals and other professionals who would agree with us about the dignity of life are going to be forced out of the profession. Medical students are leaving their schools and not pursuing this because they see that there's a conflict here. They're not going to get the adequate protection they need to practice medicine in line with their conscience.
Now, does this protect medical students as well? Because I know there have been some places that have required that medical students learn the abortion procedures.
Mm-hmm. That is a good question. It should protect professionals, right, from having to do the procedure. I'm not personally sure, honestly, if it would extend to the students or not.
Okay. And I take it this would cover nurses in their daily jobs?
Correct.
Because I know there have been some cases where nurses have been in hospitals where they've been told that they wouldn't have to provide or assist in abortions that have been called in on an emergency basis and said, you will assist or you'll be charged with abandoning a patient, you're going to lose your license.
Mm-hmm. Right, that has happened, and there's been different treatments of different types of professionals, some legislation that we've seen. Obviously, we want to make sure that all professionals, whether they are physicians, nurses, physician's assistants, whatever role they might be playing and how they're practicing medicine, that they're protected.
Okay. And would this go on then to the psychologists and psychiatrists? Because I know there are some places where if a child comes in and says he feels same-sex urges, that there are certain limits in some states and localities what a therapist can say or not say to that child.
Mm-hmm. Right. This is another area that needs protection, right? It's absolutely vital, and similarly to how medical students are avoiding certain areas of the medical profession, we see this with psychologists and therapists and counselors. My wife is actually undergoing education in this area right now, and she's going to, hopefully someday, she won't have to, she'll be protected, but there is further protection that is needed for the mental health professions.
Okay. Gina?
Jordan, I'm very curious about this legislation. What's the history of it in Ohio? Have they been trying to pass it for a long time? Did the elections determine a better outcome for this passing of the legislation and being signed by the governor? What organizations have been promoting it and supporting it through its process?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, there have been a number of organizations involved in different roles. CMF has helped out the Christ Medicus Foundation. There's also been ADF. I know ADF has been very involved, the Alliance for Defending Freedom.
Mm-hmm. We have them on almost every other week talking about
it. Very active organization, yes. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And like the Religious Freedom Institute involved as well. It was a little bit of a surprise that this was included at this point, but we're just very thankful that Governor DeWine decided to include this and signed off on it. And there's a number of efforts ongoing in different states, likewise, to try and get these things passed. But Ohio was honestly a little bit of a surprise that it did happen, and one for which we are very grateful.
Well, I imagine in many states we'll see more of it, especially with the hostility in Washington, D.C., to kind of push a national program to remove those rights. In fact, just recently, the House Appropriations Committee has put together their Health and Human Services bill, and in it eliminated the Hyde Amendment and another amendment I'd never heard of before, called the Weldon Amendment.
Right.
Do you have any history, or do you have any background to explain to us about the Weldon Amendment?
Sure. So there are a couple of different amendments that are very important for conscience protection: the Hyde Amendment, the Weldon Amendment, the Coates Snow Amendment, the Church Amendments. Each of these is looking at different areas and making sure that our funds aren't going towards things that violate our conscience. The Weldon Amendment, I do apologize. I can't recall at this moment exactly what that is focused on.
The little bit, it seemed like it was almost a conscience right. So basically, if
somebody receiving federal funds is protected with their conscience,
right. They don't remove they're allowed. Their funds aren't taken away from them because of religious.
They're not
objections.
discriminated against on the funding.
So, I saw that the United States Catholic Conference of Bishops has violently objected to this appropriations bill because of these
the Hyde Amendment taken out, Weldon Amendment taken out. Probably the other two that you mentioned have also been, if they were protecting conscience rights, I'm sure they've been taken out.
Right. This has been a move that we've seen from HHS and really across the federal level to remove these different amendments from areas that they're normally included in, right, to make sure that our conscience rights are protected. There is a concentrated effort on the federal level to do this. It does make it even more important, like you were saying, on the state level to make sure that we get legislation passed to protect people so that they have a remedy to protect their right, so the right of conscience. The conscience is a civil right that really has changed the world in a lot of different ways. So we do need to make sure it's protected, and making sure the state level right now is the most viable path for doing so in a lot of instances.
Yeah. Do you have any states picked out that you're looking to try and move into right now? I don't mean move into like take over, but you know what I mean. To get the
to promote this kind of legislation rolling, at the state levels.
Yeah. There's some other states that you would probably classify them as red states, right? More favorable towards this type of legislation, where it'll be easier to this type of law passed. So I think some of the bigger states, something like Florida or Texas, have been discussed as well. But there's work that does have to go into this, and we're not limiting ourselves to just a few places either.
Okay, and I suppose you've kind of at least given up a little bit on the federal end of it for right now, the way the Congress is made up. Well,
it's still important to God is in control, right? We are always people of prayer, and realize that He can change hearts, that He can affect any change. So, we will always be praying and always trying to educate around the issue and help people understand but there's not a clear path towards change at the federal level that we can see right now.
Okay. Now, if people want to find out more about what you do and maybe follow along with some of the things that you are doing, how do they get a hold of you?
Mm-hmm. The best thing is really to look at the Christ Medicus Foundation, just at christmedicus.org. And a major part of our ministry is making sure that Catholics have faithful Catholic healthcare options. I'm the director of CMF Curo. So we want to be engaging in ministries that actually build up pro-life healthcare. So you can learn more about what we're doing at cmfcuro.org.
And I take it you're a nonprofit organization?
Correct, yes.
And so people can make donations to you there that will help further your work.
Exactly.
Okay. Do you also, on that website, are you also able to recommend practitioners?
Yeah, that's part of what we do at CMF Curo is we are working to connect our patients, our Catholic faithful patients who are looking for medical care from faithful Catholic doctors. So we do help to connect people there.
Very good.
That's a great service.
Yeah, that is a good service. Well, we hope our listeners will take a look at your website, christmedicus.org, and maybe if they have some extra change, throw it in the bucket there.
That's right. And congratulations on your work in Ohio.
Yes.
I look forward to more states taking that role.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Certainly. Sure. And we appreciate your time. Thank you very much. And we will be in touch later. All right.
Yeah. Take care. God bless.
Jordan Buzza, Director of Christ Medicus Foundation. You're listening to Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio. We will be back after this break.
Hi, this is Father John Ricardo, and I want to thank Caldwell Parish Funeral Home and Crematory for underwriting Christ is the Answer. Losing a loved one, as we know, is never easy, and it can leave you feeling lost and even hopeless at times. But Caldwell Parish helps ease that burden by sincerely caring both about your loss and about your faith. Caldwell Parish Funeral Home and Crematory is Des Moines' only Catholic-owned and operated funeral home. Their number is 515-276-0551 or online at caldwellparish.com.
The Catholic Tuition Organization provides tuition assistance for families to send their kids to our Catholic schools and 65% Iowa tax credits for you. Give to ctoiowa.org.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and John Leonetti in the Morning is provided by Blessman International. Blessman International partners with volunteers and donors to provide sustainable programs for children in South Africa by leading 12-day all-inclusive experiences, sharing the heart of Christ with vulnerable children in South Africa. Teams are forming to do something significant in an African child's life. Learn more at blessmaninternational.org. Thank you to Blessman International for their support of Iowa Catholic Radio.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and the Uncommon Good provided by Mercy College of Health Sciences, where you can chart your course for more.
This is Bo Bonner.
And I'm Dr. Bud Marr from the Uncommon Good.
Mercy College provides unparalleled clinical rotations, hands-on learning, accelerated education, and flexible schedules. Since 1899, Mercy College has been transforming students into healthcare professionals. Guided by Catholic values, our faculty put classroom theory into practice. Students are prepared for roles in service and leadership throughout their own careers.
Learn more at mchs.edu.
And we are back. You're listening to Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio. Gina, it's interesting that we have this foundation out there that is kind of bending over backwards to make sure that our medical conscience rights are respected.
Right. I had heard about the Catholic Medical Association. In fact, I listened to their podcast, Doctor, which I think is broadcasted on EWTN radio.
Okay.
And always informative information. And I know that the Catholic Medical Association also has a list of Catholic doctors, but this sounds like another great resource for Catholics looking for medical care that understands our conscience rights as Catholics.
I had heard one time the term Catholic Medicus, but I never knew what it was. And it's nice to find out because this is another source we have for people who are trying to help us out with those conscience
And I had
protections.
heard about CMF Curo, the healthcare program that they almost a healthcare program, like medical insurance. I'd heard of them before, but I didn't realize they had a foundation that was actively involved in policy.
Mm-hmm.
I love that the Ohio, that they came into this Ohio legislation kind of on the back end. It would be interesting to know the whole history of it, or if somebody slipped it in, much like the Hyde Amendment was slipped in so many years ago into legislation.
We talked about that before,
Right.
Yeah, that is kind of interesting.
And we're going to have to watch what's going on in Washington, D.C. I know Cardinal Dolan's doing his best, but it will take us all to contact our congressmen and elected officials to object to this appropriations bill and the removing of our conscience rights as professionals and as individuals, and using our tax dollars for things that we clearly have an objection to.
Yeah, but as Jordan said, this Equity Act that the
Equality
House,
Act
has passed, it basically says that other rights supersede our conscience rights.
Right. RFRA is thrown out the door.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. The Religious Freedom Reparation Act.
It is. It's not gutted in the Equality or Equity Act, but it is non-applicable as a remedy to pursue something.
Right.
Specifically eliminate it. So while the RFRA is still there.
Right, but it's nullified by the fact that you can't defend your rights under that
and so
legislation.
For the people who are in Congress that are voting for these things, I don't know if they're going to be too receptive to, our appeal to, conscience, because they've obviously rejected our right of conscience.
Not all of them, and it's important for us to voice our opinion on it.
Right, it passed narrowly, but it passed on a party line vote. And we say not all of them, but we know kind of who's on our side, and we also know who are standing against us.
Right.
And I think we ought to make that something that we're going to focus on in upcoming elections. That we want people that are sympathetic to our rights of conscience. Well, that understand
the Constitution. I mean, not necessarily sympathetic, but understand the rights that we received on the founding of this country.
That's right. I
mean, I think it's a basic right, and it's being eroded.
And it's being eroded. We can see who's eroding.
And that's why we cover it every week here at Faith on Trial.
That's right. Two things I want to bring up tonight. One is we have this Celebrate Country concert at the Seven Flags Event Center that you can still, I guess, walk up and get tickets for that. And also I want to mention that, and this is a little selfish of me, but from 4 to 7 tonight at Chocolaterie Stam at 2814 Ingersoll in Des Moines, I'm going to be with 4 other authors signing books. So if anybody wants to stop around.
Because you've written a murder mystery.
2 murder mysteries.
Not a theological book, but this is
a murder mystery. I killed a nun.
Fiction.
I've killed a nun. Yeah. All right.
So that'll be a good event on Ingersoll. So it's the nights filled with things to do. Thank you,
Deacon
Mike.
With things to do, certainly. Yeah, and thank you, Iowa Catholic Radio. Let's end right now with our prayer to St. Michael. St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray, and do thou, Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, thrust into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world, seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. All right. Thank you for listening. I've just been informed that Seven Flags is now called the Horizon Event Center. So
right, so the concert is tonight at the Horizon Event Center in Clyde.
I guess Seven Flags is an old name.
Yes, I guess.
Okay, all right. For Gina and myself, thank you for listening. Hope you can make it to one of those events tonight. Join us next week for another edition of Faith on Trial. And until then, have a blessed and peaceful week.
Our freedom of conscience and religion is being challenged by laws and regulations imposed by secular society. Faith on Trial with Defender of the Faith, Deacon Mike Mano. Faith on Trial, Thursdays at 10 a.m. on Iowa Catholic Radio, iowacatholicradio.com, and the Iowa Catholic Radio app.
Support for Faith on Trial and Iowa Catholic Radio provided in part by Imogene Ingredients.